I'm excited to share with you this interview I did with a team member of mine, Josh Riggs, over at Gym Academy, where I bring you behind the curtain to how I got started in my gym. So this one's going to be a little bit different than what I normally am putting up here. But instead, I want to take you back to how I got started opening up my first gym, to then what exactly I did to do over 20 million in total revenue before exiting my gyms. Super fun. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments your biggest takeaways from this interview. Enjoy.
In this episode, I'm joined by Bob Thompson, co-owner and founder of Gym Academy. In this video, you're going to find out how he started from a $20K a month gym owner to being over a $4 million multi-location business owner. He's also going to share how getting a mentor changed his life and how Gym Academy was made out of necessity, not just a desire. He's going to share from the beginning to the end of his story, and I want to go ahead and let you experience that. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Bob Thompson. Okay, Bob, give me a little bit of the background, the origin story that is Bob.
The origin story that is Bob. Well, I guess now I've been in the fitness industry about 13 years now. I never planned on being an entrepreneur, never planned on opening up my own business, never planned on having a gym, let alone like 8 locations that I owned or anything like Gym Academy. In fact, Gym Academy was not something I ever wanted to do. I felt that was something I had to do. I started as a trainer when I was in school. I was actually originally going to go to school for art. I was going to be an art kid. But prior to that, I fell in love with training. I was 115 pounds. Fitness absolutely changed my life. I had no confidence. I had no self-esteem. And then I figured all of that would be fixed if I started working out and I got jacked. It doesn't exactly happen that way, but it taught me a lot of amazing lessons that especially have carried over into business. And I was actually never motivated by money, interestingly enough. But I saw that. I was like, do I really want to become a gym teacher? Like financially, it's probably not going to be the best. I discovered you could be a strength and conditioning coach. I started playing rugby in college. I was really I was powerlifting. I know you like powerlift. I was doing like powerlifting and, power building and stuff. So I was like, oh, strength and conditioning would be the path for me. And then I found there's really no money in doing that. And there's also a lot of risk. If you're a strength and conditioning coach at a university, the turnover is crazy. Like if the staff gets let go, you get let go. And then you got to go find a new one for basically being like slave labor. And I was like, I'm not doing that. After that, I think I just gave up. Actually, I also interestingly couldn't become, I needed to go get a graduate degree. I apparently was not smart enough when I was taking my test to get into graduate school to get into a good graduate school. I then just went back and then I eventually got a job as a trainer at a sports performance facility, training athletes. Really loved doing it. If that culture was different, like I probably never would have left. I was able to grow inside of that company relatively quickly. I had a job that I absolutely love. I was definitely overpaid for what I had to do. But when I was about 24 years old, the culture of the business in that company was like, it's not a place I wanted to continue being. And I had somebody encourage me to go open up my own gym. And I'm giving you like the full rundown, long story. Because I think it's also really important as I think about this when I was training clients is people look at you and be like, oh, you're fit. Like, what do you know? It's like, well, at one point I was 115 pounds. I absolutely hated myself. I got to train religiously to get here. So I think it's really important. Sometimes people be like, oh, well, you had 8 gyms and you did, then, and now you're doing this. Like, what do you know? It's like, I started with absolutely zero business experience, zero business knowledge, but I was a trainer, didn't like the business. I had somebody encourage me to go open up my own thing. And these beautiful human beings allowed me to train in their basement. Melissa and Pete, I owe so much to them. That's how I got started. So for probably 6-7 months, I would work my full-time job. Twice a week at night, I would go an hour away to their house, train in their basement, and then have to train there for essentially 2 hours. So I train the kids and then I train Melissa, and then I would drive home another hour. My only day off, which was Sunday, I would then drive out there and train in the morning. Eventually, I found a space to open, and having zero business experience, I was like, okay, I'm going to train these athletes. And I was just like, cool. I just want to have a place where I can train my clients. I can bring my dog to work. Like those were the 2 things that I wanted to do. When I opened up my gym, I was 25. I was again fortunate also with another individual that I knew that owned a chain of dry cleaners who gave me a piece of advice that I carry on now, that if he never gave me this piece of advice, I never would have made it. And it's something that we preach inside of the academy to this day is make sure that my rent is going to be no more than 10% of my gross revenue. Now, I had no business plan. I had no idea what was possible or capable inside a gym. So I was like, I guess I could maybe make $20,000. Like I'd be rich as shit. I'd be killing it if I did that. Like I was just like, if I could make 6 figures, oh my gosh, like life is amazing. So the first couple spots, and I was in the Philadelphia suburbs. I was in an area called Villanova. I started looking out in the Villanova area, and all of the spots I looked at were just way too expensive. And I also only had $20,000 saved to my name, which the company that I was moonlighting and training this other place, once they found out I was opening up my own gym, even though I put my 2 weeks notice in, and gym that I opened up over an hour away where none of the clients would go to still sued me. So my 20 grand immediately whittled down to $15,000. So I had to pay them 5 grand to settle that case. So I had 15 grand to pay for any sort of lease, pay for any sort of equipment. And of course, I didn't really even think about living expenses. But by the time I eventually opened up, I actually only had, I don't know, $900 left to my name. So when I first started looking at those spots in Nova, they were just way too expensive. At the time, to me, it was like 5 grand. I was like, oh, I can't do that. 10 grand, even more than that. This is the main line. So I kept getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. And eventually I found a spot that was 1,200 square feet. And it was $14.97 for rent. I was able to somehow manage a year-long lease initially that then went month to month. I did all of the demo when I signed the lease. I had 2 friends actually end up, and I didn't ask anybody for help, but I had 2 friends that came and did it. And like, did I get permits? Absolutely not. I didn't do any of that stuff. We just started, and it was a print shop. And so we're just knocking walls down, pulling out live electric and shit. No idea. So like friends helping and do that. We built it out. All my equipment was used except for 2 squat racks. Again, I had no money. I bought 2 new squat racks from Rogue because they were super cheap. They were actually cheaper than getting used squat racks. And this was early, days for them. My turf was used. I had horse stall mats. I had used dumbbells and all that stuff. And then I opened in a space that was super cheap that allowed me to be here today. Once I opened, it was quickly realized like, okay, I got to figure out how am I going to pay my bills? And then how am I going to bills for the business and then like bills for my life? And at the time I just started cranking away. I needed to get clients. I had a lot of downtime. I didn't have any clients. I had, those couple kids. And fortunately, Pete also told everybody they know they were young baseball players. So it was a sports performance gym. And I trained some adults in semi-private training eventually. But he told everybody they knew. So eventually we started via word of mouth. And I was a very, very good trainer. So clients would get great results. So you know how that slowly is. I started slowly getting clients. But I was brand new. I was 25 years old. I was having the time of my life. So that's actually how I got started. And then when I started needing to get more clients, initially I did 2 things. One, I just did the activities that I knew, which was essentially like brute force effort and outbound. The second thing that I did was I used the resources that I had, which was time, because I didn't have any money. When I was getting into training, I wanted to be the absolute best trainer possible. And I still think to this day, I'm a very, very good trainer. But like I wanted to be the best. And then once I opened up my gym, I wanted to be the best trainer and I was training the athletes. And then eventually it slowly started shifting like, oh, well, I got to start thinking like a business owner. But that took a little bit. So when I first opened, it was like, okay, how do I grow? I started thinking, I was like, how am I going to get clients? Like, I don't know anything. And I'm also like relatively, I guess, shy, not the right word anymore, but like I'm introverted. And I was shy. I lacked, even when I opened my first gym, I lacked a lot of confidence. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to get clients, like cool word of mouth referrals. I didn't ask people for referrals. They just sent them because I was just good. And then I would literally get in my car because I would train some clients in the morning. I would have clients at night because athletes was like 3 p.m. They would start coming in. Now, normally, and this is what I found myself doing at first, is like, cool, I got a gym. I'll train in the middle of the day. Like this will be sweet. My workouts are going to be epic. And I was super into training at that time. So like I was always going to do that. And I was like, fuck, I need money. I am broke. I had a conversation. I was like, I can't train in the middle of the day. Like I need to go and do the activities that are necessary to grow my business to make me more money. So I just would tell myself during that time, but I made an agreement with myself is like, I will train if I have to wake up early or if I have to stay up late. Like I'm not missing my workouts. That was at 25-year-old meathead. It was the most important thing in my life. There's nothing that can get in the way of that. You know what I mean? Like I'll sacrifice for sure to make that happen. But the other activities were new to me and I didn't want to do them. I wanted to train athletes. I wanted to work out myself. So I was like, okay, I do know I need to like get more business. Like this is what I'm doing. Like I didn't have a business plan when I opened. I also, when I opened, I was like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen if this doesn't work out? Okay, I shut down. I have to go get a job. I'll be a trainer. I'm a great trainer. I'll go get a training job anywhere. Like, oh, so the worst case scenario is I'll become a personal trainer at a gym. That sounds pretty good. That was like my dream anyway. Before I opened, I read a couple books that have been very influential for me. One of them was 4-Hour Workweek, actually, by Tim Ferriss. And I think inside of that book, it talks about like, having like almost this level of optimism and not going into the negative thoughts. Like I just, I don't really think about negative outcomes. I don't let it creep in. I don't like to be around it. If somebody's negative, I don't want to be around them. So I was like, okay, the worst thing that can happen is I fail. Awesome. Cool. And I never thought about it again. So then fast forward, now I'm trying to I need to grow this business. I'm like, okay, so I don't know how to get clients. How am I going to grow them? I would just hop in my car. I trained athletes primarily, and I would go, where are my athletes? So I would just drive around until I found, one example would be a jujitsu school. And I just knocked on the door and introduced myself and be like, hey, I got a gym. We train athletes. Would you like to come check it out? Like there wasn't anything fancy. I didn't know marketing and no sales. And then I started doing that with cold email. I would go and find, okay, I can't just go knock on high schools. So like, let me go email all the coaches from the schools. Let me go find other sports programs programs. Let me email all those coaches and let me find anything else that could be related. Physical therapy places, all of that. Like I just would send cold email and I would have that list. And usually what I would just do is I would Google and like I would look for places near me, sending them emails so I get their emails as many as I possibly could. And then I would also call them. And I think, I gave myself a rule. It's like I got to, reach out to like 10 emails, 10 calls or 20 or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was. My advice now would be like do at least 20. But that's what I did at the time. And I just did it every single day. And that's how I got my initial clients. Just pure outbound, didn't know. And since I delivered a good product, like generally they would stay. Like churn, I didn't even know what churn was. I couldn't tell you how to calculate it. Didn't even know like people leaving, like clients didn't leave. So I was able to grow in that capacity. But what ended up changing for me was a couple things. I started early in those days when I was not outside driving. I was like, I have to learn about business. And I would just pick up some business books. One of the books that I picked up, there's a couple that were really good. One by Harry Beckwith, which is Selling the Invisible. Highly recommend it because fitness, we're selling the invisible. And that was actually like more of a marketing book. And then I picked up, I guess it was probably like a recommendation for me, probably on Amazon, which was like Dan Kennedy's, but the Ultimate Sales Letter from Dan Kennedy, which was all about direct response marketing. So then I used that book and just was like plug and play. And I wrote copy out of that, put it on Craigslist, essentially put together my sales letter, put it on Craigslist. And that's how I got my first personal training client coming to me. And this was the big first, like one of the first ahas that I was like, holy shit, I can have people come to me. They're then going to pay a premium. I don't have to go to them. Then I started using Craigslist initially as how do I get clients. I remember having some initial success. And then I took my first ever vacation about a year in because this brute force, by the way, it allowed me in my first 12 months of actually doing business as a personal trainer to make over 6 figures. In my first full 12 months of doing business this way, I made $160,000 in gross revenue and my overhead was $2,000 a month. So it's like, okay, so 24 grand, like that's not too bad for my first year in business. Of course, I got a gigantic head from it. But then I took a vacation. Eventually, fast forward, I hired a team member, all that, and I was able to take a week off. Go to San Diego. My gym's in the Philly burbs. And I just started thinking, and I'm like, wow, like, and to get time off was a pain in the ass. I was like, okay, like I love what I do, but do I want to be a trainer for the rest of my life? Do I want to be in my 40s still training clients and trading time for dollars? And I was like, no, I do not want to do that. So I was like, I have to figure out how to change this. And I also had a really great team member at the time. I was trying to figure out growth. And, so I was like, cool, I got to open up more locations. So I opened up my second location and everything that worked at my first location did not work for my second location. And all of my profit started disappearing. And like many people, I ignored it for a long period of time. And now I had 2 locations with no more revenue. In fact, if I was at a location, like clients would go to one location or they go to the other location where I'm at. So I just added more overhead, significantly more, build out costs, all that stuff. And then I was just losing money. And eventually it was down to like my last $1,000 after having initially successful business. And this was 2 years into the business. I eventually saw a Facebook ad from a guy named Sam. A good month, I might generate 12 leads. And this was early Facebook days. And he's like, here's all these leads I'm getting. And I was like, cool, I don't have any money. You could take my last of my money. Gave him the last of my money. And he absolutely changed my life, taught me that kind of initial foundation. I actually ended up completely changing my model. But now instead of me going out and getting people to come to me, people were coming to me. And it was like using paid advertising, putting together really good offers, creating more leverage in my training, going after a different type of market, being open to it, just taking that leap of faith on some random dude from the internet taught me a completely different way. And then from that decision to 3 years later, I went from almost shutting down to having 8 locations doing over $4 million a year out of my gyms with close to 50% margin. And then eventually I decided to franchise.
So obviously we all know that if we want to make it to the next level, we need to learn. Education's key, just like you did. You did it from books at first, then you got Sam later. What was it about Sam or a mentor that made you say like, hey, I have no money, but I'm still going to give you the rest of my money because I got to grow and you look like the guy that can help me?
So if I think about when I first got into fitness, I was 115 pounds. I ended up getting dumped by my girlfriend at the time. I was like, I'm going to get jacked and I'm going to get her back. And I didn't know anything about training. I didn't know anything about that. So I had a weight bench in the basement. So I went downstairs into the basement. And I started lifting. I smoked at the time, by the way. I smoked cigarettes from 10 years old to 20 years old. First time ever going into the basement, I went down, I'm bench pressing and I'm smoking a Marlboro Red at the same exact time. Then I did that for an entire summer. And obviously that training plan didn't exactly work. However, I didn't give up. I wasn't like, okay, well, fitness doesn't work. But I, watched action movies and stuff growing up. So I was like, okay, if Arnold can be jacked, if Sylvester Stallone can be jacked, I can be jacked. And if there's jacked human beings, like I can get there. I just don't know how to do it yet. And inside of fitness, so then I was like, okay, I didn't give up. I was just like, I have to figure it out because clearly what I'm doing is wrong. And maybe it was just honestly something that was instilled in me from my dad. My dad was a business owner. He owned his own, and he still does, his own pest control and home inspection company. So I grew up just seeing that. And we didn't really have any like conversations about it. But I was just like, okay, if other people have that, achieved fitness that I haven't achieved, it's not that I can't do it. It's just I haven't figured out the secrets to it yet. Maybe it's my ADD, but when I get interested in something, I get very obsessive on it and I want to learn as much as humanly possible. And then maybe it's this chip on my shoulder. Once I get into something, I want to be the best at it. Because I have especially early in the days, like when I first opened my gym, I had like a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to prove people wrong. I don't know who the hell was proven wrong because nobody was against me. Nobody even gave a shit. But like in my head, I'm like, I'm going to show these motherfuckers that I'm going to be successful. So I think it started prior to Sam as eventually finding out, okay, other people had success. And then reading articles and blogs and going on forums and shit like that and seeing the success and then applying those things and then doing it consistently over time, I then eventually got the results. So that from fitness put inside of me, I just have to figure out what it is and then I have to take those actions and I have to do it consistently. So when I met Sam, ultimately it was really, really simple. I wanted to accomplish something that I had not accomplished. He clearly had accomplished those things. He just simply showed me proof. So I was like, cool, he's where I want to be. I don't know how to get there. I'm just going to pay somebody that's going to get me there faster. And that's really as simple as my thought process was. I am also, and maybe it's because I opened my business young, I am not risk averse at all. When I was a kid, I'm risk averse on certain things like getting hurt. Don't want to do that. Risking money, not a problem. But with Sam, the interesting thing where it's like trainers, anybody that owns a gym, it's like you have a gym and you're telling people, and like we run training based gyms. And like, so if you have a training based gym, boutique studio, you're then training somebody on stuff that like, could they do on their own? Yeah, but they go and get a coach and they go get a trainer to get there faster and do it properly and avoid all the other mistakes. So here I am talking to this individual and I can't remember if he had 8 gyms or 15 gyms at the time, but he was way ahead of me. And all I had to do was just pay him some money to then get all the shortcuts and avoid everything for sure. So it was a no-brainer to me. And then as a trainer, that's how simple in my mind it was for me. And that's how I continue to operate to this day. If there's something that I want to accomplish that I have not accomplished and I don't know how to do, I go find somebody that's done it and I pay them to teach me how to do it. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the shortcut. I also buy a ton of courses. When I wanted to become a better trainer, changing my physique, I would read the articles, I'd read the books. I would then go find the courses and the forums and I would go pay stuff. The way I look at it is I want to be different than other people. So I always look at it as like the mass population does not have the things that I want, but there is a subsection that do, and they're much smaller. So they know the things that I don't. So if I want to get to that level or get those things, the things I haven't achieved, I just got to go find the person that has it. And it's usually the opposite of what everybody else is doing. And that's what I found with Sam.
You mentioned that you ended up opening several locations. And one of the things that Sam did that made you want to work with him is he's opened up multiple locations. Was it always your game plan to have multiple locations, or was it something that you decided to do as you grew? What made you make that switch from being a one-off gym owner to, I want to own, what was it, 8 at one point?
Yeah, so I owned 8 gyms. I never had a plan to have 8. That was never my thing. I was blown away when I joined Sam's group and the numbers that people were doing. I had gotten up to, I think, 20 grand, but that's where I was stuck. I got up to 20 grand and I thought my shit didn't stink. I was the best in the world. And then I got pulled down because, like many gym owners, I was stuck being the business. I bought myself a job and I didn't have anything scalable. The only thing that actually did really well initially was when I read the E-Myth prior to opening my business. I was like, okay, I need to make sure that if I wanted to have multiple locations, even though I didn't plan to, that the recipe for the product could be the same everywhere. So I systemized my training methodology right away because that's also just how my brain was working, is like frameworks. Like, here's how you start somebody off, here's how you go, here's how my level of periodization goes. But I also just wanted to make sure if somebody else was signing off their name on my business that the product was really good, I'd be happy to have that quality out there. So I systemized that. That was the first thing. Outside of that, like, nothing I had was systemized or scalable. So I had no way to do that. When I got into Sam's group, he had multiple locations, and then other people had multiple locations. And then I saw somebody, mind you, I'm making no money at the time, and he just took home $2 million the year before. Like, took home, not gross revenue. Yeah, that's what he took home as being a gym owner. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what's possible. Got it. Okay, I'm going to step up. Then just being in that group and, again, having this chip on the shoulder, and I was like the youngest dude in there, I then wanted to be the best. In that group, it was like, okay, people have multiple locations. I'm going to have more locations than other people, and I'm going to make more money than other people. It wasn't even about the money. The money actually was a byproduct. But seeing the money that Sam was making, seeing the money that these other guys were making, I was like, holy shit, that taught me what was possible. But I still really enjoyed the business. And then I was just like, okay, so what's next? I'm doing this. I have this, like really what I got initially from Sam was how to build out a predictable client getting system. I mean, I had something that worked. So I was like, okay, I can just keep going and going and going. And the problem inside of gyms is there is a geographical constraint. There's only so much that a certain market can do. Now you can do, by having one service and then you're going to cap on it. Or if you want to have a single location, you can go to multiple services and ascension offers and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to scale up. But it was never my plan, but it was eventually, I just wanted to be the best. I wanted to have the biggest business in that group because to me, in that group, it was about business, revenue, clients, all this stuff. It was about being the biggest. So that's what then pushed me to get there.
I think that's honestly one of the biggest things for me in any kind of mentor group is you go into anything thinking that the ceiling's here. And if you get in a room where the ceiling is not even existent, the world just changes.
Well, what holds people back is their beliefs. That's it. It's like any time that we speak with a gym owner and we're like, oh man, like this would be great for them, but they're afraid. And they're afraid because of their limiting beliefs. And what are our limiting beliefs created from? From our past experiences. If you only stay in your bubble, which keeps you comfortable, you're only going to get more of what your current like life is. You're only going to get more of the same. By getting into new rooms, you change the environment. When you change the environment, you change your environment. You change what's possible for you. And that has definitely been a catalyst and a trend for me is consistently. And it's why I think it's really important for like anybody that comes in the academy. We're not for everybody. That's okay. Inside of the academy, we are going to be building a business that gives you freedom. Our goal of doing this is to get you rich. Freedom and rich and all that, like it can be by whatever definition you have. But ultimately, what we're trying to create is a business that you get to run on your terms. I didn't know that was possible until I got in those rooms. Now, there was some certain things, like speaking about previous experiences, like I saw, like my dad has said he has a business, but the business completely relies on him. So that was something that I wanted to change. And I go, okay, how can I make sure that like, you know, if I want to take a week off, I don't have to work twice as much before, twice as much when I get back. And most trainers, gym owners, like if they take a week off, they just lose revenue. It's like, okay, I don't want that to happen. I don't really have a business. Again, I just have a job. So like that was an experience of how I wanted to do it differently. I didn't know how to do it though. So I could try and let my ego get in the way and try and do it the hard way and get nowhere for years, which a lot of people do, or actually end up being worse off, or just get in a room where like once you have your belief broken, you understand like how many things are possible, and then you just have that map there, it just gets there faster. So
to put it in perspective for people who are pretty hesitant about investing in coaching and in mentorship, you took about was a year before you joined Sam or a year and a half? How long was it before you joined Sam?
So it was about 2 years.
And you were about $20K a month when you joined Sam. How long did it take after joining him to get to that multiple location, bringing 4 mil in growth?
Well, it's actually fun. So I think this is a really good lesson for a lot of people is I actually, at the easiest time to ever be successful in a gym, I think it's really easy now, but like it was gangbusters back then. I was one of the first people early to Facebook advertising. I actually lost money in that program at first. Fast forward about a year, I opened up my third location about a year after joining. From that point, 2 years after that, I had 8 locations. So it was like slow. It was just like a hockey stick, like a lot of things happen. Slow, boom. But why did it happen? Is at first when I joined, I had no skills. I was a trainer. I had to learn everything. And how coaching is done now versus then is very, very different. There was a little bit of like, here, you do this, and then you're on your own. I'll see you in 3 months at our next mastermind. Like that was it. Early on, I ran some ads. You know, he taught me about, and I learned about like what offers are. And that was like one of my first introductions to it. And then like, here's how to run ads. And running ads back then was very, very different. And then I remember the way that we used to do sales, we didn't do like one-on-one sales, we did group sales. And the first time deploying this, probably within a month, I had 50 people show up to my gym. Now from this new method, I did not know sales. Now, if you probably asked me, I probably would have said I'm great at sales because I closed everybody that came into my gym. I remember I could count on one hand how many people I did not sign up in my gym prior to that experience. I would have been like, I'm amazing. I'm the best at sales. Well, it's really easy to sell people when they're literally coming in completely sold. Like they've been living in that problem for so long that they went and sought you out. They literally knock on your door, show up in your gym, like layup sale, or they come from a friend and a referral who've then pre-sold them and they've seen the results from the other person. So it's like, okay, I just want to make sure this person's not an a-hole and they're going to sign up, which is how most gyms grow. Most personal trainers, like, so then they have this misconception they're amazing at sales. Well, I was slapped in the face. I was terrible at sales. I had 50 people show up. I signed up 4 of them, 4 people. Then the 5th person, I gave it to her for free because she was in a really, really bad spot. Now, it paid off. She worked for me for years afterwards. So then I was like, that blew my mind of what was possible. Holy shit. I haven't had 50 people come in here, I don't know, in 6 months. Now I had it in one night. I had 50 people show up to my gym. Cool. And then I was like, great. So then I don't remember how much I ran in ads that time, but like all the process we have now wasn't there. I would get it. They wouldn't even like, there's no CRMs and shit like that we were using in the gym space. It was like a woo-foo form. So I got this form, didn't follow up with anybody, didn't do that. Once a week I'd upload them. I'd send them a mass email, did these things. And then, so I ran the first one. We did the first challenge essentially. And then I did another one. And for my first like 3 months of doing them, not a single person stayed on. Maybe even longer than that, but not a single person that I signed up on the front end actually stayed. Eventually give them free time at the end. They would pay me up front, then I'd give them free time at the end, but I wouldn't collect any money because I was uncomfortable with sales and uncomfortable with any of that. So they would just turn out because there's no investment into it and stuff like that, and they wouldn't continue. And then eventually what was costing me like spending money on ads, team, all that stuff, I ended up just like losing money. Most people at this time would give up. Most people would quit. Oh, I sound so egotistical saying that, but like honestly, like most people, if that happened to them, like they would blame the system, the program they're in. They would blame the leads. They would blame, the quality of stuff, and they'd say it's not for me. It doesn't work. And they quit. But again, being in that group and then seeing that there was other people that it was working for, I was like, oh, it's a me thing. And also, like, deep down, at the end of the day, you can only fix yourself. I can only control certain things. And the only person I can control is me. I have no control over anything outside of me. So I'm going to focus on the things that I can control. And I was like, holy shit, like this, I'm losing money. And the easiest time for this to ever be successful, then I just had to I was like, I want to be really good at this. I want to get better. I got to figure out, where am I screwing up? Why aren't people staying on the front end? Well, I had to figure, how do I sell? How can I actually sell more people? Spoiler alert. Eventually I got to the point where I could close 75% of the room in a large group environment. Then we got to the point where 90% of the people were sticking on afterwards, if they came in from one of our front end offers. Eventually my attrition, after having to learn it the hard way, I got my attrition on a monthly basis to like 4.56% across all 8 locations. But again, a lot of the stuff happened, and it wasn't, I didn't say, oh, it can't be done. It was like, I just haven't done it yet. I got to figure out how to get it done. But it took me that whole year to really figure it out. Once I figured it out, once it clicked, I saw what was happening in my locations, and the community was building like crazy. The results clients were getting was phenomenal. The word of mouth was spreading like crazy. And then I ended up opening my 3rd location because I noticed, and back then we used to market it like when you're doing something that's very, very different. Like that's the best lesson in marketing, is different is better than better. So I'm doing something completely different, and all the market had never seen it before. So when they see that, there's a lot of intrigue, and the offer is so good. So like the most important part in marketing is the offer. So the offer is so good. I'd have people willing to drive to my gym that lived in a different state. My gyms are in Pennsylvania. They come from Delaware. Now it's a little bit closer. There's the edges and stuff like that, but they drive like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. 35 minutes to come into my gym, which is not realistic for them. So what I would find is they would stay for the front end offer, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it was. They would stay for that, and then they wouldn't continue because they couldn't commit to the drive, but they're willing to commit to the drive for the short period of time to get the amazing result. So then I was like, well, if I have all these people that are willing to drive to me an obscene distance, how many people are not willing to drive there? And then I just saw it as a big opportunity. It's like, I got this system that's working really, really well. What happens if I go and place it there? So that's what happened. I opened in the next location, and it was gangbusters. In 30 days, I signed up 150 people, paid me $500 to join the gym. And, all those years, and this was 3 years now into business. Yeah, 3 years into business. So it was all those lessons, like boom, knocked it out of the park. And then they got such results, consistently worked, kept adding new people, businesses were growing. Then I was like, okay, I'll open up another location. And then I'll open up another location. And then eventually it was like really simple for me to open locations. And that's why then I was able to go from 3 years to get to like 3 locations essentially to then 8 locations in 2 years, because I cracked the code and figured that out.
I want to touch more on the cracking the code thing here in a second. But first I want to touch on something you said during that. You talked about how you looked internally, you realized, hey, it's a me thing, not the system thing. How did you break down, because you had a lot to learn, right? You went from being a trainer to joining this mastermind to getting a wealth of knowledge and then trying to deploy it all by yourself because you didn't have someone holding your hand. How did you break down, okay, here's what I'm sucking at, here's where I need to improve, and then focus on the skills one at a time? Like, how did you decide what skills to focus on to grow?
That's a great question. I'd have to channel inside of this. So I will say this. I worked all the time. There was something when I started, one thing, I didn't have any money initially. So I was like, the one thing I have is time. And I will refuse to be beaten because I got outworked. Since I started the gym initially, that's always been like my philosophy. I will outwork somebody. And when I get interested in something, I want to shortcuts, like the 10,000 hours rule. How am I going to, if I know I'm not closing anybody, I'm not selling anybody, I got to learn sales. So I'm going to do everything I possibly can. So honestly, every minute of the day when I did not have clients was spent learning, whether it's reading a book, going on YouTube, or anything, like hitting up, when I had other gym owners that I knew, hitting them up, asking them questions. That's what I did all the time. And I would do it late at night. Like, it was what it's like, you think about what do you got to do to get like really good? It's like, I just became obsessed, and I actually really enjoyed it. Like, I fell in love with marketing. I fell in love before I even learned how to do ads. Like, when reading that Dan Kennedy's book, I was like, this is really cool, putting it up. I was like, okay, how can I get really good at this? And then it was like clear to me that I'm having people show up. I can't sign anybody up. So it's clearly the big constraint there. I got to get better at sales, because if I can go from closing 4 out of 50 to 25 out of 50, it's a game changer. And then I looked at it as like, I'm kind of stupid. So I just look at things as simple as humanly possible. The foundation for scaling a gym is having a predictable client getting system. There's a caveat. Like, you got to have a good system for training clients. And like, you shouldn't open up a gym if you don't know how to train clients. And if you don't know how to like train clients and program and do all that, like, go buy into a franchise that has the recipe built. But I had that. Then it's like, okay, if I want to grow, I need to have clients come to me. And gyms, even if you're the best trainer in the world, you're going to have churn. Like, it's just natural. You're always going to have to get new clients. And then that's what I was obsessed with. And I honestly made a lot of money relatively quickly, like going from doing 20 grand in a month on a good month to then being able to make that in one night. Like, it changes you. And that's what ended up happening. So I was like, okay, I just got to do more of this. I didn't even think about, by the way, like retention. I didn't care at that time because it was so easy on the front end. I was just like, how do I get more people to show up? How do I get more people to sign up? Because that's all it is. I just got to sign up more and more people. And that's where my mind was at the time. So then I would just take a look at it. It's like, okay, do I have to change emails that I'm sending, my text messages? And like, there's all these different softwares. Like, we use LeadFlow. Now it's so easy for gym owners. But like, then it was like 10 different things I'm patching together. It's like, where am I sending my emails from? And then I was like, okay, so like, what do I got to send in my emails? How do I make my emails better? How do I say my words? All that stuff. What are my text messages? And those were just mass text messages at the time. What are my mass text messages look at the time? I didn't even know you could call leads, by the way, until a couple of years in. So like, I didn't even do any of that. But it was just really figuring out like, where is the bottleneck, where if I was able to solve that, it would give me the biggest amount of growth. And at the time, it was just getting more clients, which I do think is the foundation. It's the foundation for any sort of gym. And in a lot of service-based businesses, having a predictable client getting system. Now, the cheat code inside of gyms is we have recurring revenue. It just took me a little bit to really figure this out. Like, my recurring revenue is growing. And then I was like, oh, I looked at how many people I signed up in a year. And I was like, my business could be way bigger. It would be a lot easier if I didn't just like have a churn factory, whether they're not sticking on the front end or sticking on the back end. So then I was like, if I could keep these people and keep signing up this many people, the business would be amazing. And then I was like, and then what happens if this system on the front end breaks? Because eventually things change. Ad costs get harder. People get more skeptical. Signups get harder. But if I have the recurring revenue and I have a great product and a great team and a great culture, then cool, they'll stay. So I was like, then eventually it shifted to, what do I have to do to build a real business that's not just front end dependent? Let's like actually has all the recurring revenue, because that became the big constraint. Once I realized like I couldn't add any more clients a month, like the markets just weren't supporting it. I just couldn't do it. It didn't matter if I spent more money, tested different offers, different creative and stuff like that, sent different follow-ups. Like none, I was kind of like, I was optimized. It's like, okay, how do I get it to the next level? And that was then essentially like building out the back end or opening up more locations, really is what it was.
This soul-crushing realization when you're good at sales and you realize that you sold so many people through the years and you didn't keep them, and you like, it's always like a hindsight's 2020 moment. Like, I had the exact same realization. I was looking at my numbers and I was like, if I would have just like kept half these people, like,
oh my gosh. It's true. Now, the cool thing is I noticed the same thing. Like, there's so many people we didn't, but by actually opening up, being really good at what we did, becoming very, very known for something. Like, I remember, dude, this is when you know you're onto something, is when people talk shit about you. And I remember seeing prominent personal trainers in the area commenting on my ads, talking shit. I'm like, dude, we sign up more people in a day than you get in like, than you even service an entire month, and it's like the amount of people that come through and change their lives because of us. When I got that in, what I did find is because I kept opening at more locations and we kept getting better and better and better. And that was it. It was just constant refinements. How do we get better at every single part of the business? And because of that, I'm always like looking at how do I get better? How do I take from other industries and bring them in? We get people coming back all the time, whether it's somebody that was with us for a year and then they tried going elsewhere, they would come back, or somebody that we didn't close. I have an incredible story. And then I use this in my sales process in my gyms, but we had a guy that came in, he was going to sign up for the program. He was severely overweight, like 330 pounds, kind of overweight, former athlete. Came in and he's like, we took him through the sales presentation. He's like, all right, I'm good. I know what to do this. I'm a former athlete. I'm going to go do it on my own. It's a good lesson also for having coaches. I was like, okay, sounds good, man. Didn't hear from him. 12 weeks later, he texts, hey, when's the next program starting? I need to start. I'm afraid I'm going to die. Like literally what the guy said, because in that time period, he gained over 40 pounds. So here's this person who knew exactly what to do. I literally laid out step by step, step 1, step 2, step 3, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. He then had done stuff in the past, went and did absolutely nothing, even though he knew he needed to, because he was already completely out of shape, then came back. So we would have people come back. Now this is obviously on the front end, but the same thing on the back end. And when he joined, in the first 6 weeks, he lost 46 pounds. In the next 6 weeks, he lost another 30 something pounds. It absolutely changed his life, lost over 100 pounds and stuff like that. So I share that as some people, when you talk, I love high, I just like signing a ton of people. It's high volume. It's we get to have an amazing impact. And what I found is because we started having a really good reputation as well, people would circle back to us, but probably not as much of a, it's looking back, you're man, if I just knew how to keep these people, I look at it and that's a multi-million-dollar lesson for me. If we were doing millions a year in recurring revenue, 100%, I could have had double that in recurring revenue. So I could have just simply doubled the business on a monthly basis from actually for the first probably 2 years thinking about retention and thinking about all that. So 100%. Yeah, we did have people coming back, but yeah, that's a multi-million-dollar, and think about it over years. Then think about it when I went to go sell my gyms, the value lost there. So yeah, you're bringing something. Yeah, you think about it. It's yeah,
it hits you hard.
Yeah.
But the good thing about you though is you're not someone who dwells on things. You're a go-getter and move really quickly. I wanted to touch on something because I know we're short on time here. You opened up 2 locations on the same day?
Yes. So
How?
I opened up 2 locations on the same day. I also closed on a house at the same time. Now, when you figure it out, and I did make a mistake after that, but to me, I love opening up new locations. And I think the cool thing about the fitness industry is it doesn't matter how bad the business is in shape, you can turn it around in 90 days, which is really cool. You can also launch location. And I just got to the point where I had a great team, I had great clients, I had great systems. So the business was operating without me. And so it's okay, so what's next? Where do you go? So I had, these 2 locations. This is going to sound bad. I got bored of opening up one at a time. So I wanted to try 2 at a time. So I opened up another one in Pennsylvania, opened up another one in Delaware. I think the thing inside of business is people open up a gym in particular, get into business, and they're looking for certainty. And that's just impossible when you get into entrepreneurship. In fact, what is certain is you will solve one problem and you will create another problem, and usually a bigger problem. So for me, opening up gyms became relatively easy. I wanted to challenge myself. So I was what happens if I open up 2 at a time? What happens if I open up 2 at a time and buy my first house ever? So I did that. So there's a lot of cash going out at the time for me. Cool lesson outside of that. It actually taught me a lot about markets and what can happen, because the first one of the locations had a very, very slow start. Now, all my locations prior to that, I was making money. I was profitable by the time I opened the doors, and I was only doing 30, 60 day pre-launches. That's it. So I could turn it around relatively quickly. So it's okay, if I can be profitable day one, or at least break even, cash flow positive day one, and then in a year I'm going to make a couple hundred G's off a location. I'm going to open up as many as I possibly can, which then also comes down to a mistake that I made later. But so I was cool, let me just speed that process up. And I had a great team. I'm just completely removed from the day to day. All I had to do was check my ads, send an email out, because I would never just send it in advance, and then I would go live in a group. That's all I did every day. So that's less than an hour. And then I would go and go to a gym if I wanted to, where I wouldn't. So I didn't have a lot to do because my team didn't need me there. And the gyms were operating fine. So I opened up those 2. One had a great start. And again, all of them prior to that knocked out of the park. One had a really great start. One was really slow. What it ended up happening in 12 months is they both were in like $40,000 from each other. There were $40,000 discrepancy. One finished the year at $380,000 in revenue. The other one finished the year like $420,000 in revenue. But then the second year, they both did $550,000. My average overhead was $18,000 at the time per gym per month. So, and then I think like my top location, it was like our overhead got up to like 25 grand. So like my overhead was relatively low as well. But yet I built careers. I just made good decisions with my rent, kept expenses low, paid my team super well, but I was still able to do that because we just operated in a different way. Yeah, that's why. Now, looking back at it, I will say, after I did those two, I was like, how do I grow faster? What's the next step? Okay, I've gotten this. What's next? And then I franchised. Looking back at it, because it wasn't expensive to open a location, it wasn't, it was, again, break even or profitable. And also, like, I was very good just at like managing and leading that team, or leading the team. I wouldn't necessarily say managing. I had good people that manage them. The time it took me to decide on franchising, which then I hired somebody, paid them so I could do it properly, and then opening, I had my first location open, took me 2 years. The same amount of money that it cost me to do all of that in time period, I probably would have doubled my footprint in my brick and what I personally owned. So yeah, not every decision that I made was a great decision. Looking back, there's a lot of pros, and I think things are done for you, not to you. So I think everything happens for a reason. But I think, there's a couple paths that way. But yeah, I guess I wanted the challenge, and that's what it was. And I'm constantly always looking at like, what's the next challenge I guess I can get to.
All I know is that's wild and pretty cool. So we are running low on time here. So I like to end this podcast with one question that I ask everyone and to see what the different answers are. What is one thing in business that you wish you would have known sooner?
So it's a really good question, but I think it's a really tough question, because while there's things I wish I had done differently, I wouldn't be where I am today had the sequence of events occurred the way they needed to occur. If I think about it to, my wife, like if I had sold my gyms to private equity, I never would have met my wife, because then I wouldn't have gone to a private sale, because I would have been stuck in the gyms for the next 3 to 5 years minimum, maybe still be doing it. So maybe we wouldn't even be here, because there would be no gym academy, most likely. That is a tough question, because at certain times, and if I'd known things earlier, maybe there wasn't other lessons that I didn't learn that I needed to learn. But if I did have to say something, it would be understanding the power of paid ads. For the first couple of years, I didn't advertise. I also had that mentality that like, what do I need to market for? What do I need to advertise for? Like, it's beneath me. Like I only need referrals because I'm so good. Had I known, even though I was probably like within the first, couple of years of Facebook even existing, had I started even sooner and hired a coach even sooner, that'd probably actually be it. Is I wish I hired a coach from day one. Now, not so much there. If I had a coach from day one, I would have had a lot more success a lot faster. I also wish I asked for help a lot more along the way. Even though I would go and like pay for stuff, I still would learn a lot of the lessons the hard way, unfortunately. So that's probably something, whereas now it's just like, I just want to take in as much from anybody as possibly can. And I'm really like cognizant, because there was like certain things that were like, oh, don't do this. And I would just like be an idiot and make the same mistake. And like, they told me this was going to happen. Why did I just do this? But yeah, it would probably either be to get a coach sooner, or I would have started paid ads day one, because then I would have had an extra 2 years jumpstart. But I also maybe wouldn't have known the things that I eventually had to learn. So yeah, probably be coach first, to be honest with you.
That was actually my answer when I was asked this. So
really?
Could not agree more.
Yeah, it would definitely be that. It's just like, I think it's even tougher to a degree nowadays, because there's so much information out there, and there's a lot of bad ways. Like that's why Academy started. Is Josh and I, we looked out there like and it was just like the advice being given wasn't good. And like how gym owners were being taken advantage of, like wasn't a fan of. And I was like, well, I've actually done things that gym owners haven't done. And I've made a lot of the mistakes. So it's like people are just in the gym space are just getting ripped off. So it's like, let's get into it. When I first started though, finding that information was actually few and far between. Now we're in an information like overload. I would say it's probably even more important now. Now, obviously I'm biased. Say I'm an owner of Gym Academy, but it's like we see the clients that come into the academy with an open mind that just apply the coaching, and I know we're over time, but like they don't get in their own way when they do that, and they just do it even when they don't. Like for me, when I was going to do a bodybuilding competition, and I remember hiring a coach that was a bodybuilder, was way more jacked than me. And I remember him doing a training. We were training in a way that I thought was stupid. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And I'm super smart when it comes to program design and training. I was like, but he's bigger than me and I'm paying him, so I might as well fucking do it. And it's the most jacked I've ever been. So it's like, okay, it's like I just followed it. So we see that with clients that come in here that just follow it. And from the beginning with an open mind and have just great, massive success. Whereas like other people, they go in and they have to like me, there was like hard-headed at times. Like they're hard-headed at first and they got to take a few licks before they're like, okay, like let me just, not submit. It's not the right way to say it, but it's just like, let me just follow the process. And if I do that, I follow the process and even when it doesn't make sense to me and it's out of my comfort zone and out of the things that I normally do, I will get to where I need to be. And I think nowadays it's even more important because of how much information is out there that they should find somebody that's already done it. They have a track record of people and then be open fully to what they're being told so they can avoid the mistakes.
I think what you said about there being so much information out there that you almost need a coach more than you ever have to filter it all out is 100% accurate. But the good news for everyone listening to this, Bob makes a crap ton of content now. So I'll have that listed below so you can follow his personal channel and he'll be back on the show. Thanks so much for hopping on and telling us the story that is Bob.
Thanks, bro. I'll see you next time.